Good morning, everyone. I'm Chiranthi Lianage, a senior lecturer from the Faculty of Medicine, Colombo. So today's webinar is one of its initiatives, and we are truly privileged to have two distinguished resource persons with us, Professor Indika Karunatilaka, our Vice Chancellor, who's a leading figure in medical education and research leadership, and of course, Professor Don Eliseo Lucero Prince III, an eminent global health researcher, with extensive experience in strengthening research capacity across the globe. So during this session, our speakers will discuss how to increase high quality publications, ways to optimize research profiles through different platforms, including ORCID and Google Scholar, and strategies to leverage collaborations for expanding academic influence, and of course, importantly, aligning our individual and institutional research efforts with the university's long-term goals for sustained growth. So we look forward to an engaging and inspiring discussion. So if you have any questions during the session, please feel free to type them in the Q&A box. The speakers will address them at the end of each presentation. So of course, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce our first speaker with us, who of course needs no introduction, Professor Indika Karunatilaka, the Vice Chancellor of the University of Colombo, who's a proud alumnus of the university with academic roots in both Colombo University and the University of Dundee. He's a senior fellow of the UK Higher Education Academy and the founder president of the College of Medical Education in Sri Lanka. He holds many key leadership roles in numerous global health organizations, including being the Secretary General of the Asia Pacific Consortium for Public Health, the first Sri Lankan to hold that position, in fact. And he also serves as the editor-in-chief of the Southeast Asian Journal of Medical Education. So with his wealth of experience in research, education, and international collaborations, I now invite Professor Indika Karunatilaka to share his thoughts and insights. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Chiranthi, for that very kind introduction. And I thank all of you for organizing this very important webinar. The idea is to how to improve our publication profile as a university. And I would like to welcome Professor Don Prisno, who is a dear friend of mine as well, for joining this webinar from Philippines. Yeah, so thank you very much. I'll start with a brief overview and on the info in your publication file. Move to the next slide. Yeah. So, Sri Lankan universities have contributed over so many decades. The Sri Lankan universities have contributed towards research and knowledge economy. It's very commendable. Actually, when it comes to research and innovation, Sri Lanka is ranked best in South Asia. And among the different disciplines in the universities, most of the publication and research comes from the medical and dental and veterinary sciences. And second would be the physical, chemical, and life sciences. Then comes the engineering, IT, and then subjects like agriculture and forestry. And less publications at the moment from areas related to humanities. So this seems one area that we need to work on and improve. Talking about universities, University of Colombo is the #1 ranked university in Sri Lanka. And it has been there for, that position has been there for many years. And when it comes to publications also, the University of Colombo stays ahead and has become a leader in the Sri Lankan context. For example, if you go by the Google Scholar citations and H-index, the top 10 scientists in the world, within that category, there are 21 from Colombo. And in top 30, again, 95 from Colombo. So in that sense, I think University of Colombo is leading. However, we need to do more. the research output can be further increased. Now, previously I have shown you that many scientists from Colombo fall into top categories. 21 scientists from Colombo within top 10 category. Another 95 in top 30. But still, at the moment, when it comes to academic staff, we have about 600. So we have those numbers, about 100 in this top 30 category. Still, there's a lot more areas for improvement. For example, when we think about the junior researchers or the staff who are junior, there is a lot more areas for improvement, especially when it comes to the H index and citation. So this can be further increased. And when you compare with top-ranked universities worldwide, still there are areas for improvement in Sri Lankan universities. So that is what we want to discuss, how we can move to the next level. Talking about the ranking, one word that comes very frequently is the H index. I'm sure many of you are aware of what is meant by H index, but for the benefit of everyone, H index is an indicator of the frequency of how an article being cited. Now, we publish our articles in peer-reviewed journals, and those articles are cited by others. So, H-index is an indicator of the frequency of our articles being cited. Another indicator is the citation count. Citation count is quite simple. How many times our articles have been cited by others. Again, when you take Colombo University, there are some researchers whose citation count goes up to thousands, maybe 10,000 or even more. So that's a worldwide dose. So that's a huge advantage. And we have several scientists in University of Colombo falling into that category. That's a citation count. So what is meant by the H index? H index is based on the number of times our articles have been cited. The formula is n number of times of n number of articles being cited. So if that is too complex, I put it into simpler forms. If we have one single article published in peer-reviewed journals, and that is cited once, then your H index is 1. If you have 2 articles, and each of these articles cited at least twice, your H index is 2. If you have 3 articles, and each of these articles have been cited at least 3 times, then your H index is 3. So that is how it goes. N number of times, the n number of articles being cited. If you have 20 articles, and each article has been cited at least 20 times by other researchers, at least 20 times, then your H index is 20. However, some articles obviously may be cited more, but still it became the determining factor is the least one. Among those, the least cited one. So based on that, for example, if you have 2 articles and one article has been cited 10 times, and another article has been cited only once, your H index is still 1 because we have 2 articles, okay, but one has been cited once, another has been cited 10 times. So I think I am clear in that aspect. So H index is based on number of citations and the frequency and number of articles. Yeah, and it's the further you go up, it becomes difficult. Now, getting an H index of 1 is easier. You have one article published at least cited once. But going up becomes more and more difficult. So I think now I am clear. When it comes to official administrative matters, UGC has several years ago have indicated a tier system for publications. A tier system for publications based on different disciplines. So that was sometime year ago, I think about 10 years ago. So I think this is updated, but at least we can use this to get some understanding. So minimum H index value. So if you are a researcher and you have published articles, but your articles are yet to be cited, then you are in the tier 1. And if you are a researcher and you have, say, articles published, and you have at least two articles, cited at least twice, your H index becomes 2, and you fall into tier 2. Now you may see in areas like humanities, the tier 1 threshold is 1 article with 1 citation. This is based on the consideration that in some disciplines, it's easier to move up in the H index because you can publish more. The research community is with larger numbers. Okay? There are more people in your research community and there are more journals. So your chances of moving up in the H index is higher. For example, in areas like maybe, say, in medicine, maybe endocrinology and immunology, you have more chances because there is large research community and many journals. Similarly, when it comes to, say, physics, say particle physics, sometimes you might see scientists with very high H indices, sometimes moving into, say, even 30s or 40s. Why? The reason is because in these research are published with large research groups. Sometimes one research might have about 100 researchers, 200 researchers. When there are more researchers, then better chance of dissemination and better chance of getting cited. That is why in certain disciplines, the scientists enjoy very high H indices. But certain disciplines like maybe fine arts, mathematics, the chances of moving up in the H index may be comparatively less because it's very difficult to find very new things. Sometimes the number of journals will be limited and they may be published in languages other than English. So some disciplines enjoy better chance of having higher H index. That's why those different disciplines are given different tiers. So tier 3, if you are in medicine, indigenous medicine, tier 3, if you have 7 articles cited at least 7 times, you have a H index of 7. And tier 3 and tier 4. In general, what I think is, in general, if you have a H index of 10 and a citation count of about 1,000, you are above global average. So when it comes to the Colombo context, we have some scientists, about researchers, about 24 researchers who have H indices more than 20 and citation count more than 2,000. So they fall into this tier 4. On the other end, we have some academics, their H index may not be that high. Sometimes they may be belonging to disciplines where it may be rather difficult to move into H index. So today we are going to discuss how we can move up in these areas. I'm just showing my Google Scholar profile just as an example. Now you can see the H index is 90. So that means there are at least 19 articles cited minimum 19 times, but some may be less. Some may be more. For example, there's one article cited 307 times, but it doesn't mean that I'll be getting an H index of 300. So there are 19 articles cited at least 19. And in Google, there's another one called I-10 index. What does that mean? It means how many articles are cited at least 10 times, I-10. So here it is 32. And the citation count is also there. And one thing I want to mention is when you go further up, okay? When you further up, then moving up in the ladder becomes even more difficult. Say moving from 19 to 20 is very difficult. Another thing I want to show is now this is Google Scholar H index. But when you go into say ResearchGate and other repositories, it's different. It's different. Now you can see lesser H index here, 17 compared to 19 here. The reason here is Google Scholar, the mechanism is automated, where automated robots, they basically go around the cyberspace and search for articles, search for PDF documents and articles and identify them as citations. So this is an automated process. Due to that reason, Google Scholar tend to give a higher H index compared to other databases or repositories like say ResearchGate or maybe Scopus. Scopus is even more selective than ResearchGate. Yeah. So that is something that you need to understand. So in the practical point of view, what I want all of you to do is, if you don't have a Google Scholar account, to have it. Okay, that's one point that I want to tell you. Because without a Google Scholar account, without ResearchGate account, your publications might not be counted into H index calculation. So one thing you have to do is, since you have the university email address, you can easily have this Scholar account. If you are not sure how to do it, you can get the guidance from our experts in the IT unit. So that's one step that you can do. Another thing is you need to make sure that your publications are they are included in your Google Scholar profile. The citations, the publications are there in the Google Scholar profile. So once you have made your Google Scholar profile, you can edit it actually. You can log in through your university email with the Google email, and you can have your profile picture, and always remember to have the University of Colombo affiliation. Always remember to have the University of Colombo affiliation, because with that only we can move up the rankings with your contribution. So have a Google Scholar account, put the University of Colombo affiliation, and make sure that your publications are there in the Google Scholar profile. Sometimes you might wonder, I don't have many publications. Okay? Still, sometimes you might not have a journal publication. You may be having only a conference publication. Still, you can incorporate that into your Google Scholar profile, because there are different categories. And there is way of citing that and incorporating that, so that you have a better chance of getting recognized and cited. Another suggestion I can do is, whatever research that you have done, if you have a research paper, fantastic, great. Include that, disseminate that widely, because most of our publications are open source. In that case, you have the right. Okay? Disseminate them very widely. Idea of research is disseminating your findings. So you can make use of these repositories like ResearchGate, and there are many others. And you can even upload your publication, your journal article, or maybe your abstract, or even your presentation. You can upload them in your ResearchGate and other repositories. University of Colombo also developing a repository. So disseminate very widely in the cyberspace. Then you are increasing your chances. Of getting cited. Then you are yeah. And sometimes some of your journals that you publish may not be recognized directly by the web crawlers of the Google Scholar. In that way also, you can manually enter them. You can manually enter your publication into your Google Scholar profile. So gradually, Google Scholar will recognize them. So these are small strategies that you can use to improve your publication profile. So that's one thing. Still, I know it's not easy. We have a lot of challenges. We have financial challenges, lack of funds in research. We have difficulties in attending conferences. Even to attend a conference, getting funds is not easy. Getting leave is not easy. For the publishing, we need to pay a lot. We need to pay the publication profile. And if you have a lot of citations, high H&Ds, you have to publish in top tier journals. But they charge a lot. Sometimes the author processing fee can go even up to $1,000 or even more. And logistical, access to literature. Sometimes we don't have access to top journal. Even the University of Colombo, our databases are very limited. So you can't do a literature review without access to literature and access to international research networks, research opportunities. This is actually vicious cycle. If you do more research, you'll have more network, more collaboration. So we have challenges. So, but still we have opportunities. We have you, highly qualified academics. And the research culture is gradually emerging. Our HND profile is far better than what it was there several years ago. During last few years, we have gone up very rapidly. And we have the IT expertise and the accessibility to internet and also the AI. All these are there. So we do have opportunities. And one common complaint is we don't have facilities, we don't have money, we don't have grants, okay? We don't have the research reagents. True, I agree. I mean, we lack all these resources. We lack all these resources, and those opportunities are gradually coming. But still, there are things that we can do without much funding. Just think of Albert Einstein. How many lab-based research he has? To my knowledge, only one. Probably he is the greatest scientist ever born. But most of his research required the most important research tool in the world. What is that most important research tool? That is above your neck. That is your brain. Lot of research, lot of publications, lot of work by Albert Einstein were actually thought research. They were thought research. He needed only a notepad and a blackboard and a piece of chalk because most of his experimentation were thought experimentation. I'm not telling you to become like Einstein because he's only one of that type in the whole world, but I'm just giving an example. There are low-hanging fruits. I mean, it may be very difficult to move into groundbreaking research straight away. There are a lot of barriers, a lot of research needed, grants are needed, and reagents are needed. It takes a lot of time, maybe years and years. But if you want to improve our research profile, there are low-hanging fruits because there has already research been done. Can we convert this research into practice? There are a lot of studies that have been done on many areas in Sri Lanka. A lot of databases, the research publication. Can we do at least a narrative review and publish it? That might go a long way. That might go a long way. I mean, you can go up to higher levels like, say, like meta-analysis and systematic review, so on and so forth. But it may not be very difficult to go for a narrative research, narrative review, and publish and identify what are the areas that already available knowledge can be implemented into the practical implementation. Very, very important because already there's a lot of knowledge. So publish, we need to publish. So in ideal world, have a great idea, do a literature review, research question, research proposal, and then get funding, okay, and recruit participants, collect data, analyze, write up, publish. Very easy. Looks very easy, very simple. Ideal world. But we don't publish that much. We need a lot more, improve a lot more in our publication profile. Why? The journey is not that easy. Sometimes perceive something like that. We prepare a manuscript with a lot of challenges, then it has to go to the review, okay, ethical committee approval, then the peer review. Sometimes peer review is perceived something like that. Okay? Even though in reality it may not be. Okay? Sometimes even like that. Even though it's meant to be a process, a peer process for you to improve your publication. So not as straightforward that as I mentioned. You prepare, you write, you revise, then there is peer feedback. Sometimes there can be the heartbreak of rejection. You need to revise, rewrite. It's a challenging journey. That is why publishing becomes very challenging. So, how to improve your publication profile? A very original research or practically important will have a better chance. And also well-written manuscript. How we write, the style is very, very important. And we need to be very strategic. What are the in topics, the current topics? What are the topics our journal editors are interested in? Okay? that I'm aware as a journal editor. So be strategic. Identify the in topics, for example, maybe sustainable development. And nowadays, nobody does research as individuals. You need to go for collaborative research. So join up with others, join up in teams, not only your department, not only your faculty, with many faculty, science faculty, and maybe nursing, medicine, humanities, join it together because all these are interconnected. That is where you have a higher chance of getting published. Selecting suitable journal, you have a better chance of getting cited if you go for a high level index journal, which is peer reviewed with high impact factor. What is meant by impact factor is a number of time each article being cited. But top journals have high rejection rate, sometimes even up to 70s or 90s. Even if you want to go into very high levels, our top researchers in the top 10% or top 1%, they publish in high-tier journals. So, to improve those chances, you need to think of current interest, well-written article, and you need to think of authors also. You have much better chance of getting it published if it's a multi-country, multi-center research paper. So that's a high end. But are there low-hanging fruits? Now we have the Sri Lanka Genus Online. Some of you may be aware. One advantage of Sri Lanka Genus Online is a national platform for research managed by the National Science Foundation. One advantage is when you publish there, they are recognized by Google Scholar. So your chance of getting cited becomes higher. So they are online journals and recognized by Google Scholar and sometimes several other indexing databases. So your chance of getting published is higher. University of Colombo, you have a lot of opportunities. There are many journals published by the University of Colombo. The advantage is all of them are open source. You don't have to pay. You don't pay. And many are in Sri Lanka Genus Online. So you have a better chance of improving your publication profile and the citation count and probably the H index. On the other hand, the range varies very widely. Only few are in the Sri Lanka Genus Online, so they are in the different stages of developing. So, but one advantage is your chance of getting published is higher. Your chance of getting published is higher. So, when you are at the starting point, this would be a good starting point to improve your publication product. Start small. The low-hanging fruit that you can go and start with these, our journal, and probably with time you can improve your publication profile and go higher. So this is another suggestion that I am making. Yeah. And if you want to improve your chance of getting published, be familiar with the house style. Each journal have their own style, the referencing, each dot and comma to the dot to be perfect, and even the style of writing, all this really matter. And if you need professional support in the university, we are thinking about developing that support also and supporting. And reviewers still review your manuscript. Probably you might need even language help if necessary. Get the feedback of experienced peers because there's much to learn. Get mentors, get support. So that's a support system that we are planning to develop in the university system. That's the very reason that we are starting this series of webinars to improve and support our researchers because we understand that all of you need support. So that is why we are here. Yeah. So identify area that you really like, really enthusiastic and curious. Enjoy what you do. Okay? And sometimes selecting a field that may not be very matured might have a better chance, probably. Very important, establish research networks and build up your publication profile and widely disseminate. If I want to give one key message, widely disseminate. Even your small research, even your small project that you are doing as students, fine, still present them in different forums and widely disseminate using those repositories and platforms. Maintain a good web presence, okay? But be ethical. There has been some unethical practices also, like plagiarism, so on and so forth, which I'm not going to go into details. Be an ethical practitioner, widely disseminate in an ethical way, and have an inquiry in mind. then your chance of improving your publication profile and becoming a high-level researcher, you can, yeah. The good news is that we can only go up. Don't worry if you don't have very high H index. Don't worry if you don't have very high citation count. You can go up. You can go up very easily because moving from 1 to 2, 2 to 4 is not too difficult. Okay? Another advice is work in groups. Work in groups, work in research groups. You can look into database of University of Colombo, cite those research. Okay. Once you work in groups, your publication profile will automatically go up. That's why the research with large research groups, their citation count is very high. HN is very high. So these are my advices. I think we can only go up, and that is definitely possible. That's why we are starting this program, this webinars. With that, I will conclude my brief presentation, and I would move to the next session. Thank you. Over to you, Chiranti.
Right. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for taking us through increasing our publications and also sort of boosting our research profiles. We have a question from one of the participants. Can published audits be linked to Google Scholar and ResearchGate? Oh, Jason.
Yeah, thank you. Important. Yeah, yes. I mean, as long as it is published in a journal, as long as it's published in a journal, it will, and if the journal is recognized by the Google Scholar, it will automatically go into that. It will automatically go in. No, not only audits, even case studies, literature review, they will go into, because Google Scholar is an automated process. ResearchGate is also possible because you can have your own ResearchGate account and you can upload your research. You can upload your work. Yeah. You can upload your projects. So it will also go as a citation. So again, you need to be an ethical practitioner. All these things need to go to the ethical process, so on and so forth, other than audit of work. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. So my advice is publish. My advice is publish. Thank you.
Right, sir. Thank you, sir. And we have another question on whether the University of Colombo has any other means of improving that research knowledge and know-how by means of any degrees or any formal programs.
Yes, yeah. So that's what we are going to start. I mean, we are going to establish, now we have already established a research committee which we are working on, and also another committee to improve the university's ranking. So we are working on those. So this is also part of that program that we are having. And in the future, we are thinking about having another center that will help the researchers in identify the research databases, the already published articles, and also probably helping them in how to write and how to publish. So that's the next step that we are planning.
Right. And we also have, I think it's, as you said, in terms of improving our publications and the number of publications, it's important for us to identify genuine journals from predatory journals. So we have a question about how to identify predatory journals. If you could briefly elaborate on that.
Very, very important. Yeah. My advice is never touch predatory journals. That will be because you can there are certain telltale signs. For example, you might be getting, now once you start publishing, you will be getting a lot of emails. And those emails, they will invite you to publish. Sometimes they will invite you to publish saying that they have, say, this ISSN number, so on and so forth. Don't go by just ISSN number. Go to the journal site and look for the sites whether this journal is an authentic, genuine journal. For example, go to the journal's homepage, okay, and then identify where it is indexed. Indexing also can happen in different ways. So it also a big business. There are some indexing agents that also can be predatory. So think of maybe identify the maybe well-recognized indexing agents for the time. That could be one area. That could be one area. And if the journals ask you money, and if they promise you to publish within say 2 days, okay, and if they promise you to publish or promise you to give a PhD within few days, that's definitely predatory. So there are telltale signs. So you have to be very careful. So our policy, one good thing is we can go by the SAGO, Sri Lanka Genus Online, to start with. And also journals that are ranked or maybe cited within Q1, the top site in like the, say, maybe PubMed, okay, maybe Medline, probably Scopus. So those journals. So there are certain telltale signs, there are certain indicators. So my advice is stay away from written journals. Never publishing this. Thank you.
Right, so thank you. And then we have another question about the research grants that are offered by the University of Colombo. If you could briefly tell us what are the grants that staff and students could apply for?
Yes, that is one area that we need to really develop. Probably my colleague Don also will tell a lot. Yeah, so we are attracting some research grants from high level. I mean, there's more than enough money worldwide. Yeah. Again, the advice here is when you apply for a research grant, you have to work as a research team, the grant team. Because first of all, if you have to get better grants, you need to develop your grant profile. The first time when you're applying for a grant, you might not even get it. But when you develop your research publication profile and the grant profile, your chance of getting it is higher. And that needs a lot of training. And because writing the grant application takes a lot of time. It needs a lot of practice and a lot of time. So I think that is one area that we need to work on. Could be a separate webinar on grant writing. Yeah. For the time being, let's think about low-hanging fruits. We have some grants, and then based on some publications, based on those grants, we can do some publication. So my advice at the moment is, if they are available, join them for the time being. Later, we can think about improving our research profile and grant profile and applying for that.
Right, thank you, sir. And there are other questions coming in. We will take them as we go along. Yes. So in the interest of time, let us move on to our second talk. So it is with great pleasure that I introduce our second speaker, Professor Don Eliseo Lucero Fresno III, who's, as I said earlier, he's a distinguished global health scientist whose work has focused on advancing health equity, particularly in low and middle income countries. And he has authored over 500 scientific articles, books, book chapters, and scientific reports. And he's also among the Stanford University's list of world's top 2% of scientists. And he actually holds many academic appointments across the globe in many universities in a number of countries, including the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, Mahidol University, Thailand, University of Philippines. The list is very long, actually. And he's also, he's the editor-in-chief and editorial leader in several international journals, including being the deputy editor-in-chief of BMC Global Health Research and Policy, which is a quartile 1 journal with an impact factor of 8.7. And he's also the founder of Global Health Focus, a platform that has trained over 20,000 emerging researchers and leaders in Asia and Africa. So we are very privileged to have a researcher of your caliber joining us today. So over to you, Professor Don.
Thank you very much for the invitation, and congratulations, Professor Indica, for being chosen as the leader of the top university of Sri Lanka. And I always have been there in Sri Lanka. I always look forward to be there. I would just like to ask permission for sharing. This is a very important discussion that we are going to have today. I do a lot of work in the developing world. I help many universities increase their research production. And I also try to provide support to many governments and countries. I just, when Professor Indica invited me, I actually just was in Africa working with many universities and just arrived here in the Philippines. Now, I was introduced as the editor-in-chief of a number of journals. I'm currently the editor-in-chief of Recoletos. Hint, hint, this is a free journal, APC free, and I am the editor-in-chief. I am the founding editor-in-chief of Public Health Challenges, which is a Scopus and a Q2 journal. I made this journal into Scopus in less than 2 years and made it Q2 at the very first time it was introduced in SciMago. So what does that mean? Journal is a major strategy of any university to bring all the journals to become Scopus, because that will be your long-term strategy. I do have master classes in journal management. I think we will be engaging more with University of Colombo on how to move forward this engagement. I was introduced as the Deputy Editor-in-Chief of BMC Global Health Research and Policy, which has all the indexing. I will be the incoming editor-in-chief of this journal in the coming in next year, January. So hint, hint, I will be your best friend because I have a number of Scopus journals. And but by the way, there are journals which are expensive. So I'm just telling you, these two journals, Public Health Challenges, charges 1,700 US dollars for one paper. I mean 2,400. And these are out of transparency. This other journal charges 1,700 US dollars. It is very expensive to publish. But in my workshops that we will probably be holding, we will teach you where to publish for free because there are many free journals all over the world. For example, Maritime Health, which is a Q3 journal, I sit in the editorial board. It is a free journal and it accepts many types of papers. I also sit in another Scopus journal, the National Public Health Journal of Indonesia, and this one has free for some of its papers. Now, as mentioned, I am one of the world's top 2% scientists. I teach at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. This is very important that we profile ourselves as a researcher and as a scientist. And I'm also the top producer of Scopus of the Philippines. We have 120 million people in the country. And I'm very proud to be one of the top producer of Scopus in the Philippines. Now, why is this very important? It is very important that you project yourself as a researcher and a scientist because that is your passion and that is what you want to do, to impact on science. So therefore, it is very important that you have to profile properly in all the things that Professor Indaka mentioned. For example, this is my Scopus profile. I have 368 publications. And later on, I will show you that all these indices will have impact on the ranking of your universities, on the ranking of your country, on the innovation index of your country, because these are all interconnected and they will eventually impact on many indices. So you have the H index, which Professor Indica mentioned, of Scopus. You have the H index of Google Scholar. And by the way, Google Scholar now has a special feature where it will show you where you publish, whether you publish in Q1, Q2, Q3 journal. Now, Google Scholar also has the publication university. So if you click on that, it will show the profile of your all the publications of your university. Now, these are the ones that will be taken by QS and Times Higher Education for your ranking, particularly that of Scopus. Web of Science, it also has an index. For some universities, they use the H index for promotion. However, you have to have different perspectives on how you look at this H index because some people would just say that people do this for H index. Nonetheless, whatever the criticism is, for every paper, for every research that you write, it always impacts on the science that you do. So no matter what the perspective is, whether it's the university or the national or the global science, every paper has a contribution. Now, one of the major contributions of your papers will be global ranking. Now, why is it important that we focus on global ranking? Of course, many people still criticize that, oh, you're just doing this for the global ranking of your university because when you have global ranking, the salaries would increase. Well, of course, we do research, we work because we have to feed our families. And it is very important that we have a good job. So that's one. However, ranking shows how good the university is, and that shows the employability of our graduates. Think about your graduates. They compete with the rest of the world. So therefore, even the top universities would focus on the ranking, and research is one of the major elements that is being used for ranking. So for example, your internationalization, a big part of it is from research. So if you have a lot of co-authorships with many other universities, I will be trying to work out with your university to have many collaborations with many network universities of GHF University Excellence that increase your international co-authorship. Now, if you have the ranking, it is easy for you to convince donors, grant providers to give you the money. And a big part of the ranking, for example, this is THE ranking. This is a big part of it would come from research. So, for example, the Scopus Database can provide all the interlinkages of the work with your university, and this contributes to the internationalization of your university. Now, why is it important that research should be central in the internationalization of your university? Because your game as a university is not anymore at the national level only. Your competition, because you're now the top university of the country, is global. And that is where you try to put research central because it is the basic element in international ranking. Now, every paper that you write in a journal, every manuscript that you submit to a journal, if the journal is indexed in Scopus, it is being bought by Times Higher Education or QS, and that is where the ranking happens. The reason why we are Scopus-centric, it is because the database is highly democratized, that it is able to capture many papers of the different LMICs. Because if we just use Clarivate, if the ranking bodies would use Clarivate, it will just capture the papers of the top universities. When we say top, of course, we're talking about the ranking. And of course, the top universities depend on tuition fees. So even Harvard and the top and the other major universities of the UK is dependent on tuition fee. So therefore, they have to maintain their ranking because people, students, are willing to pay if the rank is very high. That is the economic dimension of ranking. Another economic dimension of ranking is to get all the grants. So for example, you remember very well that COVID-19, all the billions of money was given to the universities based on the database who would do a lot of mRNA discoveries and vaccine studies. If we use Clarivate, it is also used by other ranking bodies. It would put more universities from China because most of the universities in China would focus on natural sciences, nanotechnology, genetics, so on. And more of the journals being indexed by Clarivate and Web of Science are more of these journals. So we have to understand the meanings of all of this. Google Scholar is the one that would be taken by AD Index, and that goes with the AD Index ranking. Whether these rankings are legitimate, that's when I will be discussing with the workshop, because this workshop would take 2 to 3 days. And this is where you can strategize both as an individual researcher or as a person or as a university or as a country on how to increase the production of research of your institutions. And all of this, they are taken in by EduRank and UniRank. And we just have to understand that even if they may not be legitimate, but as of now, I'm going to say they are legitimate indexing bodies. And this is where you try to play the game, because at the end of the day, these are all impacted by market forces, and these are all industry-driven ranking and science market. And so if you use THE, it's Scopus database. That's why I was asking our Vice Chancellor if you have a Scopus access to the Scopus data, because it is very powerful. In fact, in the future, I can probably have a workshop with you on how to produce data in less than a minute and how to produce paper in 2 days using all these databases. So that is the reason why ranking of universities have similarities, because they would use the same database. If you would use Clarivate, as I mentioned, it would produce more Chinese universities in the top of the ranking. So I also hope that you're already in the UI Green metrics, because this is a very credible ranking body by the University of Indonesia. Now, the other important thing that I have to mention is that every single paper would also cascade into many other aspects of our lives. Again, you publish in Scopus Index Journal or Clarivate. Now, the Scopus publication would contribute to the Q1, Q2 quartile of the journal. So if you're an editor-in-chief like me, this is where you try to strategize. So I have a different workshops for the journal editors, because these were to try to be impactful as a journal. And for Clarivate, it's the one that produces the impact factor. Though with Scopus, they have the site score. And site score is being used by many universities for their promotion. So, I mean, for publishing in the Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4 journals. Just mind you, SciMago is delayed by 1 year. So the current SciMago, which is independent from Scopus, but they are working together. They are the ones that you have to try to focus this. And we use all of this. There was a question on whether how to identify quality and non-quality journals, predatory. These where we try to tell you in another workshop that we will probably do, because it is now difficult to identify low-quality journals, predatory journals, clone journals, and fake journals, because they look exactly like they are real. They can even clone a journal which is in the Scopus database. Now, you as a university should produce the world's top 2% scientists, because this is also part of the image building of the university. Aside from the ranking, which is being used by the Global Innovation Index, which would propel your country to have more investments if Sri Lanka is at the high, is it very high at the innovation index, which is done by the United Nations. So remember, every single paper that you do contributes to a lot. It is not only about your promotion. It is about the economy of your country, on how research productive the country is, on how innovative the country is. And of course, when you're a world's top 2% scientist, if you produce more, then that goes to your promotion, and that goes to the food on the table in your house, because that would equate to income in terms of research. And so therefore, a bigger part of your income will be coming from research grants. And that is the same thing with your university. You now have to shift the income of your university from state funding to research funding. And all of this starts with a single paper. So therefore, the more papers, the more research production there is with the university, that will improve the status of your country. So this is a very important discussion. In the Philippines, when the president of the country would do his State of the Nation address, he mentions the ranking of the universities, because the strength of a country is based on how good or ranked a university is. Remember, education, rankings, they are all geopolitics. Where would the students of the world go? Will they go to the US or will they go to China? That is why China's white paper says that 2 of their universities should be in the top 10, and that's Peking University and Tsinghua, because they have to compete with the best universities of the US. And so therefore, now that they have 10 universities in the top 100, they are now trying to get many students of the world, so that when they all go back to their countries, the power of China will be that strong. That is where you ask your government, do we have this strategy to make the country very strong through education? And the big countries are doing that. That's why they are also very keen on the ranking. And you know very well now that many universities in the UK, the income is going down because the number of students going there is now getting low. Now, it has been mentioned by Professor Indica about H indices. Journals are indexed in many databases. And so there are so many databases. These where you use them for your review papers. So we try to give workshops on how to make use of these databases. And yes, they are very expensive because they are part of the innovations of science. In fact, a Scopus database is I think it's 25,000 US dollars for the access. I will only ask you to buy it if you can maximize it. And so there are so many databases. These are the ones that we use in my university. Now, let's focus on the Scopus database. It is important that you understand what Scopus database is, because this is the one that is being used by for the ranking. And so therefore, what you probably just understand is that only the original research papers are being indexed. No, all kinds of papers are being indexed by the Scopus database, meaning essays, letters to the editor, which are essays. I recategorize them into two kinds, one which has methods and one which has no methods. So you have a review paper will have methods that goes to the review, but letters to the editor is indexed. Essays are indexed. So what do you do as a faculty member? To increase your H indices, whether it's Scopus, to increase your H index as a university, to increase your Scopus production, you now have to tell your students that all their essays can be submitted to journals for publications, because they will contribute. So never waste any paper produced by your master students, by your PhD students, and even by your undergrad students. Based on some studies, 1/4 of the papers of many universities come from the students. Even your conferences, you never come out with conference proceedings, the summary of your conferences, and you like conferencing. It is sort of a report, an essay without methods that can be published. So these are the low-hanging fruits. And of course, for your promotion, because these other types of papers may not be used for your promotion, the original research is the ones that is being judged for your promotion and for awards and so on. So these very important, and I run workshops on how to write I call them thought papers, so that we can contribute to the discussion of the world when it comes to science. And that is where many of your contributions, which are very fast, can be submitted. And the original research, because it takes years for it to be produced, that's where it may become slow. But then again, your production of research will be very fast. So according to Wiley, where I am the founding editor-in-chief of a journal, there are 60,000 types of papers, which narrowed them down to 500. It's not only one, it's 500 types of papers. And I narrowed it to two types, the one with methods section and the ones with no methods section. So even a poetry, even a poem can be published in a Scopus journal. A quiz can be published in a Scopus journal. For example, this is a poem in the Christian Journal of Global Health, which is a Scopus journal, and it's not a simple poem. It's a nice poem. Oh children, what is my fault? The title is waiting for you. I just go to the last stanza. My dear, oh my dear children, my heart bleeds beyond measure. When will you repent and come back to me? References: Genesis 1, Luke 15. Submitted, reviewed, accepted, published. See, you're now surprised that this can be published in Scopus journals. So this is Scopus journal, heart vessels and transplantation. When you check a journal, always check the type of articles that they have. You will see that they accept so many conference papers, editorials, letter to the editor, and so on. Look at the quiz. It can be published as a Scopus paper, as a paper in a Scopus journal. So the quiz is, what is the electrocardiogram of this patient, A, B, C, or D? You see, it was published by peer-reviewed, conflict of interest. There are statements. Okay, now, how far are you producing with your papers? What is the contribution of your country? So again, research is geopolitics. Do you want to show your country as very strong in research? That is what the US, China, UK, Germany, and Japan do. They are being assessed based on the production of research, and this is based on the Scopus database. Here in the Philippines, I have a lot of work to do, because our paper publication is very low. We are number 6 in the ASEAN countries. So this is what I do as JHF. We try to monitor how strong country is in terms of research outputs, because we want to strategize the country for the investments that is needed to propel the economy. So you have a moral responsibility as a university to increase the science because you need to improve the economy of the country. Aside from the products that is being produced from your publications, aside from the discoveries that you produce from your research, there are many other ways by which every single paper contributes. Now, what is the production of research of the top universities of the world? You see, the universities in 1 year, for example, I was with Harvard as a visiting scientist in 2023. I contribute to the 32,000 papers. I probably just contributed 3 I produced during that time. Nonetheless, I contributed to the 32,000 they produced just in 1 year. Again, research is the major focus of many of these universities. Your game now is not anymore at the national level. Your game is at the global level because you are already ranked as a university. No matter how many challenges are there with the economy of the country, no matter how difficult it is to publish, because there are many ways to publish. With all my publications, my rule is 0 publication fee at 0 cost, but still contributing very good and impactful papers. And so here in the Philippines, this is the production of the top. They're out of 2,000 higher education institutions in the country. I would say, unfortunately, it's very low. There are only 6 ranked in the country. I think Sri Lanka even has a better situation. And these are the papers that is being produced by the university in the Philippines. So the next suggestion that I want to do is that your university will collaborate with all the hundreds of universities here in the Philippines so that we will use the power of numbers and internationalization of research so that every faculty member will have co-authored papers from the universities here in the country and with also my networks in Africa. Now, this is your situation, University of Colombo. And I'm going to state here, I'm also a visiting professor of University of Peradeniya. I have contributed in the research production of the other university. The other university, this is the latest data just by today, based on Scopus, has more papers. I will be frank with you. You need to have more papers if you are the top university of the country. Because the other university, I am not trying to instigate here competition. I'm just trying to hint and maybe I should join you as a visiting professor, given that I have many journals. No, I'm just joking. So you have to have, because this is a public database and everyone sees it. And this is the one that is being used by THE and QS. So you probably will be in a bit of a precarious situation because of these numbers. You really have to publish from the students to the vice chancellor. That is not negotiable. And so I'll just skip some of my slides in the interest of time. So these are, we monitor the universities here in the Philippines, my organization, so that we can strategize that they will be ranked, because THE would need a maintenance of 1,000 papers within a 5-year frame and 100 minimum within a year. So you have to have, as a university, 100 Scopus papers. However, I heard from THE that they might be changing the categorization of the ranking. It might be not anymore by ranking, but by like gold, silver, platinum, something like that they will do. But it's not yet out. It still is based on the ranking. So journal is also very important strategy, because that is where you lodge all your papers. So therefore, Professor Indica, we should get all the journals of your university indexed in the Scopus database and in the Web of Science. I would even go further that there should be a collective effort within Sri Lanka that all the journals of Sri Lanka be made into high-quality journals, because this is where we publish. You can publish 80% of your papers of the papers of the university in the journal, and so therefore this will be the one that is being fed to THE for the ranking. And of course, when you have a Scopus Index journal, you can charge, because it's not nice to have a free journal, but I also don't want it to be very expensive that it's not affordable. Just enough amount so that you can just recoup the investment that you have for the journal and pay whatever the editors-in-chief. Okay, for the most expensive editor-in-chief in the world, many editors-in-chief, the highest paid is $1 million US. New England Journal of Medicine editor-in-chief, the senior editors, they are paid $750,000 US. So that's another extra income stream for you. You always have to have a business model in everything that you do, because nothing is free now in this world. Even the Scopus database is expensive. Even the journals are very expensive. The most expensive journal is now $12,500 US. We cannot afford it. We are just feeding all these companies. That's why we also have to be very critical on where we publish. And I really would encourage that you have to have journals, the university, because I would prefer independent journals. Now, how to make your journal Q1, that is for another workshop that we can do, because as I said, first 2 years, I made my journal into Q2. It depends on the papers. Q1 is highly cited. It has nothing to do with the papers. It has to do with the machinery of the journal. So big journals, they have 1 billion Twitter accounts which is connected to them. Once you publish, it will tweet or X your paper, and 1 billion people will see it. They have all the social media. While independent journals are Q4, most of them, because they don't have machinery to publicize and spam your emails. So we will go through the details of this. This is just an introduction. For the moderator, just tell me to stop if my time is over. I'll just run through this, and then I'll just answer the questions later on. So these are the journals of the Philippines, which are indexed. It's, again, a few, very low. I cannot show you the ones in Sri Lanka, but I can do that in another webinar, because it is very important to know what are the Scopus journals. Iran, which has a lot of economic sanctions, is a power in science. They have the most journal. They have a lot of Scopus journals. That is why they are free, because of the economic sanctions. So, Madam Moderator, is my time enough?
Yes, we could maybe take another about 5 minutes. If you could.
Okay. I will just go through some important slides so that we will know where to focus on. And as I said, this is a 3-day workshop. I will now go directly to here. Okay. So in any work in your university, research should be central, because research is the one that translates into income, the impact to the country, national development, and you will attract also many visiting professors and many good researchers. You can augment the low income of the faculty by getting the money from the grants, and therefore they can get the honorarium, and of course they're going to use it for extra income for the university. As I said, have a good business model in everything that you do. And so when you look at research, there should always be an impact at the personal level, at the university level, which is the ranking, and of course, for the whole of humanity. And so therefore, encourage the faculty members to do research as early as possible, because we want your university to be excellent even amidst all the problems that they are facing. Now, the more that you write and publish, the quality goes higher. Do not go for small is beautiful, because quantity matters for now. Use the power of numbers, especially at the early part of the careers. So these are the donations of big donors to many universities when they are highly ranked. So the impact of your research would also be focused on you. And so try to have different types of papers which we can introduce in the future. And so therefore, when I do my research, I know that there is already something happening. For example, I was awarded one of the top awards from the president of the Philippines because of the impact of research. So that's at the personal level. But actually, it's not what you do. It is what you do for others that is being recognized even with your research. So I have been training many people all over the world, and I would try to invite them to be part of the editorial board member. And when you have an impact, the more that you are doing research, for example, this invitation is based on my profile, the more that you are impacting the world. So some of the young people that I have trained, they are now advising the WHO in the Youth Council, for example. When you produce a lot of papers, I have been mentoring, as mentioned in the introduction, they use it for their ability to enter the top universities of the world. So for example, these are the ones who has gone to Harvard. We pull people out of Afghanistan by us producing papers with many of the students so that they will win scholarships. That is what I do with my research. We pulled girls from Afghanistan, and they are able now to enter universities in other places of the world. This girl is now at Harvard University. She's from Afghanistan, who studied in Iran. And so we use research not only to help your universities, not only to help your promotion, we use research to pull people out of poverty and out of wars. You have to put something, a rational, with what you do. It's not only, again, about money, it is also about the impact of what you do. For example, we pulled this boy from the war in Sudan. He has been producing a lot of papers, which I have been mentoring. He's now doing his master's in Sweden. And many other researchers that I have done. So this is just an initial discussion. If you want to message us, we do a lot of workshops. We can run it for your university. And of course, at the personal level, we'll be happy to help you out to make your university impactful and you as a researcher impactful. So thank you very much. I will stop sharing now.
Thank you very much, Professor Don, and thank you so much for taking us through the complex landscape of sort of university rankings, and also like ending on a very, very personal, emotional note on how research could be used at a human level to help individuals. So thank you very much. And we have a number of questions that have been put in the Q&A. So to Professor Don, I think you spoke about different types of papers that could be published, and there's a question on whether written reflective practices in medicine and dentistry be published. And
yes, answer is yes. I have a different workshop for that. The extension work, the community services, reflective papers, that goes to all kinds of papers. We didn't go through the different journals. There are hundreds of them. Normally, we have so when we do workshops, we want every participant to have outputs at once, because it's useless to be having research workshops which has no output. So right after every workshop, you submit a paper, and that is repeated. Yes, you can publish any thought paper on such things.
Yes, as you said, thank you very much. And as you said, there are so many journals that would accept such papers as well. And I suppose there are a number of workshops that we'd have to plan with you to cover all the aspects. And this question is to our Vice Chancellor, Professor Indika. Is there an opportunity for an independent doctor who's attached to the Ministry of Health? I think the similar question was there, whether others from undergraduates or postgraduates from other universities can qualify to join research teams in the university and also have access to databases within the University of Colombo?
A quick answer, yes. Anyone can publish. Of course, the co-author, it is also good to have senior co-authors, so that the strength of the paper will be very strong. So normally it's the vice chancellor or the professor. As for the rejection rate, for it not to be rejected, the journals are blinded mostly, so they don't see the authors if it's single blind, if it's double blind, and so you can create research groups inside and outside the university or together with the other universities. Use the power of numbers for now, because have you noticed most of the things that we discussed today, they're all numbers. Now we say, oh, why are we just going for the numbers? It is because when you do a review paper, you look at the plethora of research. So every single data point, which is one paper, will contribute to the overall landscape of science. So I have no argument with having many papers, because others keep on arguing, oh, you're just doing this for the numbers. No, the database, that is why they sell, because there are so many data points in the database. That's still for us to discuss in the future, because some are purists about it. Some even do not think about, why do you have to do this for ranking? That's a BS. Of course not. Remember, when your university is ranked, you are known globally. Your graduate will be able to haggle for salaries. You know where our students go, like the Philippines and Sri Lanka. We go to the Middle East, and what kind of jobs do they get? It is now moral for us to really increase the reputation of our graduates, and the ranking is one that affirms it that they come from top universities.
Thank you very much, Professor. So, Professor Indika, sir.
Sorry, Professor Indika, I'm so passionate about this because we come from the same world.
Definitely.
Thank you, Dr. Kiranti. Yeah, so yes, I mean, University of Colombo, we are open for network and collaboration. As I have mentioned previously, the best approach to do research and publish is actually collaboration. So my belief is that we should not be restricted to our own department or to the faculty or to the maybe different faculties, but maybe even universities. I mean, there's possibility of collaboration. So my advice is, yes, we are open for collaboration. But the thing is, you need to have kind of official affiliation with the network, with the organization that you are in, and join up with the University of Colombo research team and work in that way. I mean, we work in different institutions like the ministry and other universities. That's fine. I mean, that's how we publish. But you need to have an affiliation. And yes, and University of Colombo affiliation also can happen in different ways. You can be a student, you can be faculty, and you can be a research student, and you can be following another course, and can be a visiting lecturer. So different affiliations are there. So if you have a Colombo affiliation, that's perfect. Even if you don't have, as long as you have another institutional affiliation and you can join up with one of the Colombo research teams, then you have that opportunity. And there are several other questions like, can academic assistants join? I think we should. I believe students, I mean, Dr. Chirati, you know that when you are a student, you start publishing, and many others also the same. Yeah. So I believe that students should start publishing. Academic support staff, the laboratory staff should join with the academic staff and publish together. That's where I believe in teamwork. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I think we have taken most of the questions. There was one on whether the slides of the PowerPoints could be shared, but I'll leave it to our speakers.
Yeah, I will share the slides.
Thank you.
Can I just make comments on some of the questions? Okay,
Yes, please.
research grants is very important strategy. That's where the money is. Now, for every research grant, you need to have a very good profile. That is where your H indices come in. Now, a big part of the research grant, 30%, sometimes 20 to 30% is administrative cost. That is the income of the university. Now, 50% goes to human resources. That is your salary. So it is very important, and research grants repeat. You can always recycle your climate change grant, your disaster grant. They keep on repeating and repeating every year because the world is awash with money. Now, plagiarism checking, but that's probably for the university. I'll just go some of the things which, for the APCs, I need to have an online workshop on how to identify the journals. My team has a list of free journals, all the different fields. We give it during the workshops, but there are many free journals where they don't charge APCs. I will also tell you how to increase your Scopus through the Scopus conferences. That is another strategy, though that is a bit more expensive than the journal, but they don't normally reject submitted papers. I will share the PowerPoint. Okay, I think I've answered most of the questions.
Yeah,
Yes.
and also you can share the YouTube of the workshop also in the official YouTube channel, so the information will be available. Yeah, so that could be one step. Yeah, the plagiarism software, yes, we are in the process of purchasing. Very expensive, lots and lots of dollars, but we are going to do it.
I would suggest, Professor Indica, just give them access, a list, your IT office. On, for example, Research for Life, you can access the Scopus database. I wanted to run your Scopus account as a university, but we don't have much time, but probably in another session. So that, because there are details and everything there, the profiles of everyone and everything else, and then compare it with the Web of Science. I have access to all these databases.
And just to add to the APC, being a sort of low middle income country, there are a number of journals that do provide like discounts and waivers sometimes. So it's a matter of sort of being persistent and maybe writing to the editors and asking for it coming from Sri Lanka. And we have another question on whether I suppose a sample template for a research grant can be provided. Maybe we could have it as a...
Okay. Professor Indica, go ahead.
Yeah, maybe that could be a completely another workshop that we can. Yes, there are.
I run workshops on research grants because me personally, for example, I have won more than $4 million research grant as part of my research work.
That would be perfect. So yes, in the interest of time, it's a very lively discussion that's going on, but I'm sorry that in the interest of time, we would have to wrap up. So on behalf of the university, I'm very thankful to, of course, Professor Indica for sort of leading and organizing it, and Professor Don for taking your time to join us today for your very informative and impactful presentation. And I'd also like to thank Mr. S.M. Sifar, the Assistant Registrar of the Academic and Publication Branch of the University, for diligently coordinating and organizing this webinar, and also to the task force to enhance university global ranking, led by the Vice Chancellor, for their vision and, of course, this initiative. And finally, thank you very much to all our participants for your enthusiastic engagement and the questions, and for the lively discussion. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining. And thank you.